Good evening. If you'll get your Bibles and turn to Galatians 5, we'll read a few verses there here in a little bit. Galatians 5, we'll be reading 19 through 21, or most of that anyways. So I've titled this invitation, Satan's Trickery. So I want to talk to you about how Satan works. And this is just one example, basically an interpretation of how he uses trickery or temptation to fool people into committing sin. Now, what we need to remember is that when sin is committed, it's all on us. Satan presents, but you and I move to commit the actual sin. So let's look at an example of how Satan tempts people. So I want you to picture a jail cell. You know, there's 3 walls of concrete and 1 wall of bars with a door on it. And inside that cell on 1 wall, we have lust of the flesh. And on the back wall, we have lust of the eyes. And on this 3rd wall, we have pride of life. That's what 1 John 2:16 tells us. These are the things that the devil tempts you and me with. This is how he tempted Jesus, and you and I are not exempt from that. He will tempt us the very same way. Now, going back to us and this cell, you can picture us walking by this cell, and one of these 3 things, or more than one, catches our attention. So we pause, and we look inside this cell, and it looks good. So we go ahead and walk into this cell. After all, you know, what can it hurt? The door is wide open. I can walk out whenever I want. And this is when we get caught up in sin. And every now and then we look towards that door, and the door still remains open, so we continue in that sin. But after a while, if we sin long enough, we eventually start thinking, you know, I'm tired of living this way. I don't want to live this anyway no more. So we look towards that door again with the thought of walking out. But Satan knows that we're about to walk out. So then he comes back after us, but he's going to hit us with more temptation and more specific temptation. And this is where we'll read Galatians 5:19. He talks about adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, and the like. That word "and the like" could include all kinds of things: stealing, cheating, whatever you want to put in there. That's "and the like." So when Satan tempts us with these more direct temptations, it works. And then you say, well, I'll stay in here just one more day. That's how we think. So then if you say, I'm staying one more day, you may call your drinking buddy and tell him of your plans to stop drinking the next day. Well, your friend then asks you, well, since you're going to stop drinking tomorrow, let's go out tonight and have us a good old time. Another thing that could happen is if you've been stealing from your employer and you think, well, I'm going to stop stealing tomorrow, then I'll steal more today. Or what if you're involved in an extramarital affair with somebody and you call that person and you say, I don't want to do this no more. And they reply, well, let's meet one last time. Meet me where we first met. This is Satan's trickery. But remember, he doesn't actually make you do the sin. You and I alone make that decision. James 1:14 tells us that we are lured and enticed by our own desire. And in all these examples that are happening, you go ahead and go through it. You made the decision, we made the decision to sin. So you go out with a buddy, you drink. That took time for you to go to the store, buy the beer, drive somewhere, and have a beer with this guy or be out somewhere. You chose to steal. That took time for you to get to the computer, put in the fake password or the stolen passwords and put more money into your account. Or you're going to meet this person. If it's a lady, she dolls herself up more. The man may spray some more cologne. You make excuses to get out of the house, to get in a car and drive to where this person is at. And that's when it happens. Boom. That door on that cell shuts. And at that point, you rush towards that cell door, you grab the bars in panic, and you see God standing outside, and that door is locked. So you plead with him. You might even beg, and you say to God, God, this was the last day I was going to do this. I promise you. You know my heart. I was going to walk out of here. You know that this is true. Please open this door. And God will look at you, and he will step forward towards the door and say this: depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. That's in Matthew 7:23. And he follows that up with Matthew 25:41. He says again, depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Then you feel that horrible pain in your stomach. And you look back into the cell, and who do you think is in there with you? Satan and his angels. And everybody else that did not do God's will, they're all in there. And their faces have that worried and scared look just like yours is. Now, I also want you to think of this cell as an elevator. And as soon as God stops speaking, the whole jail cell begins to go down. And as it goes down, God's light becomes diminished until it completely fades away, and eventually you are in complete darkness. And that's when you hear it. That's when you hear the cries of pain. That's when you hear the weeping. You hear the wailing, the gnashing of teeth. And at that very same time, you're going to feel heat. It's hot in there. It burns. It's going to be painful. Matthew 13:42 says, and will cast them into the furnace of fire where there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. And while all this is happening, I believe that the person that is in there would be thinking this: if I could just go back to that point in my life when I was going to walk out of that cell, I would do it and not ever look back. Brethren, this is a scary thought, to be cast into hell for an eternity. Nobody wants that. I know you don't want that. I know you don't want that for anybody. So if anyone here is in that cell right now, remember the door is still open. And I know this because you're taking a breath and we're all sitting here. So there's still time to walk out. You and you alone can decide to walk out. God gives us that power. He allows us to make our own decision. That's what it's called, free will. So we don't know when that cell door was shut. It might be later tonight, it may be tomorrow, it may be in months. We don't know. One thing that we do know is that God says to come unto him and he will give you rest. Matthew 11:28, basically saying whatever you've done, I will forgive you of. But you have to make that step. So if you're here and ready to come to Jesus, if you're ready to step out of that cell, whether it's in baptism or repenting of sin, come forward and do it now as we stand and sing.